Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So recently I was filming my best of 2022 makeup video, and as part of that I was revisiting my best of 2021 makeup videos as well, and I thought it would be fun to go through those products and put a full face of them on today, and also just share with you guys my updated impressions now that an additional year has passed. So if you're interested in learning more about these products and whether they have stood the test of time, then just stick around. So I'm going to do today's video in a get ready with me format, so all of the products will be in the order that I put them on my face, but of course you can skip around via the timestamps below in case you're interested. So to start off, let's go in with foundation. So the best foundation of 2021 in my video was this one from Lisa Eldridge. So that's this gorgeous foundation bottle. Yes, I still keep it stored in the box because I just love the packaging so much. I have this in the shade 15, but I thought for today's video I would use this sample that I got with my order. This has some lighter shades, so I'll swatch these for you guys and then put these on my face because I think 15 is more of my summer shade, and we are definitely in the dead of winter at the moment. So the sample comes with shades 5, 6, 7, and 8. So here are the shades swatched. Here's 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 5 and 7 seem to have a pretty neutral undertone, quite similar to my skin tone, whereas 6 and 8 are definitely a lot warmer, almost kind of yellow-orangey on my skin. So I think I'm going to start with shade 7, just because these are quite light, and see how far I can go with this sample. Let's see. Okay, yeah, maybe a little bit light on my skin tone, but it's okay. I feel like I can always fix things later on with some bronzer. And then maybe for a little bit of dimension, I'm going to put 8 on the outskirts. And yes, my skin has been very, very unhappy lately, but we'll cover all of those blemishes up later. So I'm going in with my BK Beauty 101 brush. I've been really loving this brush lately for foundation. As much as I really love my Huda brushes, it is a lot easier to wash synthetic brushes. So when it comes to cream and liquid products, I do find myself using my BK Beauty brushes quite a bit. So this is a foundation that I was wearing constantly ever since I got it in 2021. But 2022 for me was a really big year for new foundations. It's when I really started exploring and buying a lot of cult favorite foundations. And so since then, this foundation has definitely seen a lot of competition. I would say that it's still really beautiful. I mean, you can see that light layer just sort of looks like I applied a filter over my face. This is a really great foundation if you want something that looks very skin-like. I would say that in 2022, I didn't reach for this as much just because of a combination of all these competitors, but also because I ended up really going for a lot of really glowy foundations, like the Dior Forever Skin Glow, the House Labs, and also the Kogendo Aqua Foundation. Those all have a very different finish than this one. They have that very luminous finish, whereas this definitely, as its name implies, has more of a seamless finish to the skin. But as I am applying this to my skin, I will say it is really nice. I do really enjoy this foundation. All right, so here we have 2 light layers on. I feel like I'm looking a bit like a ghost just because this foundation is a little bit light for me. I probably actually should have mixed in some of my shade 15, but that's okay. We're just gonna roll with it. So the other 2 foundation products I mentioned in my best of 2021 were the M Cosmetics Daydream Cushion and also the Chantecaille Just Skin Tint. So this Just Skin Tint is a product I still use a ton of. It's still my favorite skin tint. The shade Glow is a little bit deep and warm for me, so I do have to mix this with my Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter, but those 2 put together look really beautiful, and so I do love this still for an everyday, no makeup look. For the M Cosmetics, I actually finished the cushion that I have in here. This is one of the first times I've actually finished a whole foundation, but this did come with a refill, and so I still have that over here. I just haven't really gotten around to refilling this product, and so that's why I ended up not actually using this that much in 2022. I still really love this. It's a very lightweight foundation product, and the cushion format makes it really easy to apply. It also has a ton of SPF, which is really great, but I've just found myself mostly reaching for all of the newer foundations that I picked up. For concealer, I had 3 favorites in 2021, the Tarte Hydrocealer, the ABH Magic Touch Concealer, and the Pat McGrath Concealer. And I would say of these, I haven't actually been using this Tarte Hydrocealer that much. I think this is actually discontinued at this point. So I really love this for a very hydrating under eye concealer on days when I want a little bit more of a natural makeup look. And so I guess I just haven't been going for that as much in the year 2022. Whereas these two I've still been using a lot, especially the Pat McGrath is still one of my overall holy grail concealers. This ABH one, I also got an additional shade, so this is shade 7. I think I have shade 4 as well now. For today, I'm going to go in with the Pat McGrath concealer because I haven't actually used this in a little while. So this is deeper than the foundation I have on today. Oh man, I really should have just used my actual foundation bottle. Oh well, we'll make this work. But what I really love about this concealer is that it is very full coverage, but can be sheared out quite nicely. And so you only need a tiny bit of it in order to cover your blemishes. And that way you can avoid having that really cakey, makeup-y look on your face. Man, it has been a little while since I used this Pat McGrath concealer, just because in 2022 I was trying out a lot of new ones like the Charlotte Tilbury, the Huda Beauty. So I kind of forgot how good this one is. It's really, really lovely. And what I love about this concealer is it's very versatile. It looks really flattering in the under eye area, but it also is excellent for blemishes. And if you watched my Best of 2022 video, you know that I love the Charlotte Tilbury for under the eyes, but I don't really like it on blemishes. And I really love the Clé de Peau on blemishes, but don't really love it under the eyes. So there's a lot of concealers that are more like specialists. They work really well for one purpose, but not another. But I think this Pat McGrath one is one of the really good ones for pretty much any concealer purpose. So now moving on to powder, I have 3 powders here. One is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush powder, which I have in this Look of Love palette. I've been debating for the longest time whether to buy this in a full size, because this pan is actually pretty similar to the full size amount. But I really love this still. This is still one of my all-time favorite powders. It's perfect for events, really nicely sets and mattifies the skin without it looking heavy or cakey. Even on my dry skin, it's not too drying, so I still really love this. Another favorite was the By Terry loose powder. This one I actually didn't use that much of in 2022, just because in general I find pressed powders a little bit easier to work with. And also I got a bunch of new powders in 2022, including the Kogan Do powder and the Say powder. And the Kogan Do one really just hit it out the park. After I started using that powder, I just stopped using any other loose powders. But the other day I did use this powder. I think it might have been in either my Fude brush video or in my Shop My Stash video, but I still really enjoy this powder. My skin has especially been really dry this winter, and I really enjoyed how this didn't dry it out further, but it definitely set my makeup and made it last longer. Finally, in 2021, I did have as an honorable mention this Kosas powder, which, as you can see, I have basically finished, and so I do really love this powder. I've basically brought this powder with me every time I've traveled in the past year because it's just a nice miniature size, and I find this powder really easy to use. I can sort of endlessly build it on my face without it looking cakey or heavy, and so when I'm traveling, I just don't really want to have to think too much about my makeup, and so so this has been really amazing. And since it's been quite a while since I've used this on camera, why don't I use this with you guys today? This is probably one of the last use cases this sad little powder is gonna get. It's basically on its last legs. And this is also one that I've been debating about getting a full size, but I usually just try to, as much as possible, prioritize getting new releases for you guys instead of spending my money just buying products that I've already been using for a while. So that's the only reason I haven't bought this in a full size, but considering how much I've used it, I can definitely vouch for it. And if I didn't have a YouTube channel, I think I would have definitely already bought a replacement for this. But as you can see, it really nicely just mattifies everything a little bit, but without anything looking too matte. And it just looks very beautifully skin-like. So moving right along, my face is in desperate need of some bronzer. So I had 3 bronzers in 2021. First, this Marc Jacobs Omega Bronze. I still love this product, but actually haven't gotten a chance to use it very much because Marc Jacobs Beauty shut down in 2022. And so I sort of avoided using this on camera after that. And I ended up putting this in my second drawer instead of my top drawer. And so then I sort of forgot I had it. And so I'm kind of sad I haven't used this guy for a long time, but I still love this bronzer. It's really, really lovely. Wonderful undertone, wonderful formula, nice coconutty scent when you open it, really nice experience. The next bronzer that was in my favorites was this one from Chantecaille. This is Goa. This is still my go-to bronzer on days when I want a really cool toned bronzer. It's definitely the coolest toned bronzer in my collection still. I would say I haven't used it as much in 2022 just because I had so many new bronzers to use, but I still really love this bronzer and this formula and would definitely recommend it. Finally, we have the Victoria Beckham bronzer. This is in shade 3. This one also I just haven't picked up that much, in part because this shade I think is slightly deep for my complexion nowadays. It's definitely my summer tone, and if I could do this again, I would have bought shade 2, which I think for most of the year would have worked better. I still do really like this bronzer though, so let's go in with it today. I'm going to use my Sonia G Hinoki brush and just lightly stamp this. This is a really great bronzer if you want something that is quite matte. So if you're not really a fan of the glowy bronze, oh wow, this brush is shedding so much. Whew. In case you guys missed my video review of this brush, I really love how beautiful it is. And it does work quite well, but it does shed so much, which is quite sad given how luxurious it is. Yeah, as you can see, this bronzer definitely has a decent amount of pigment to it. So I do find for most of the year it's a little bit deep and a little bit warm for my preferences, but still really beautiful formula. So before we go any further, let's do my brows. So the 2 brow products I mentioned in 2021 were the Huda Beauty Balm Brows and the M Cosmetics Brow Gel. And this Balm Brows actually showed up in my best of 2022 as well. So this is definitely a product I'm still going strong with. There's really just no other brow pencil on the market that's this thin, at least that I know of. It's just such a tiny fine point. And so actually recently when Huda Beauty had a big sale on her website, I bought a few backups of this brow pencil because it's just so unique. The only thing I don't like about it is because it's so fine, it can break easily, and you can also go through the brow pencil quite quickly. I think this one I'm using is actually pretty close to done. And so considering this is $18 per brow pencil, it is very expensive for the amount of product you get. But I would definitely recommend buying this on sale. I bought 2 of these pencils in her recent sale, each for only $5. And so at that price, you really can't beat this. And as you can see, because it's so precise, even though I end up brushing it out, it just leaves some really nice shape to the brows. And if you do have any sparse areas and want to make really natural hair-like strokes, this brow pencil has you covered. For the M Cosmetics Brow Gel, I still do really enjoy this. I haven't used it as much in 2022, in part because I wanted to give other brow products a chance. And Merit Beauty's Brow Gel, which if you guys watched my 2022 video was #1, definitely stole my heart once I tried it. And that cut into the amount of time I used this one. I would say this one's just a little bit more finicky to use than the Merit. You do run the risk, if you're not careful, of getting some clumps, and so you just have to be a little bit more careful. Whereas the Merit, because it's a very liquidy formula, never clumps. But I still like this M Cosmetics one on days when I want really fluffy brows. I think, as you can see, it does add some nice volume to your brows, so it's not gonna like slick them back and make them look really flat and bushy. It's gonna instead give that sort of three-dimensional effect. So there were a few blushes that I mentioned in 2021 as well. The overall winner was definitely the Pat McGrath Divine Blushes. That was the year they first came out. I bought a ton of them. I have most of her shades now in my collection, and I've continued to buy more over time. And so this is not even all of them. This is like maybe less than half of the Pat McGrath Divine Blushes I own. So I would still highly recommend these. These did come up in my best of 2022 makeup video just because I did still have new ones that I picked up. I would say overall my favorite shades are Divine Rose for cooler toned looks, Desert Orchid for warmer toned looks, and Flirtatious for more neutral looks. For today though, I'm going to go in with Venusian Sunrise. This was a release in 2022 when she had these versions that have 2 colors in them. But I feel like I haven't actually used this one much since filming my video with it, so that's why I pulled it out today. So I'm just going to go back in with that Sonia G Hinoki brush and dipping into both sides. I think this will match this dress quite well. Both of these are sort of matte, and so we'll definitely need some highlight after this. But isn't that such a cute, pretty shade? I think it gives that sort of like blue-toned pink blush effect that's been really popular ever since that Dior blush went super viral. But there we go. Very adorable. Maybe went a little bit overboard, but that's okay. Oh, and before I forget, I also did mention in my best of 2021 this bronzer in the Look of Love palette. I do still really love this bronzer as well. It's a little bit deep for my preferences nowadays. I think in 2022 I started preferring building up a lighter bronzer instead of going in with the deeper bronzer and buffing it out. But I still prefer this to my full-size Charlotte bronzer in the shade Tan. That one is definitely too deep and warm, whereas this one has a bit more of a rosy undertone. So still really love this formulation. Another blush I really loved in 2021 was this NARS Orgasm palette. This has been discontinued, so I haven't actually used it very much since then. Let me know actually if you guys would be interested in a favorite discontinued makeup video, because recently I reorganized my makeup and I realized there's a lot of products I really love but haven't been featuring on my channel because you guys can't buy them anymore. But let me know if you guys would be interested, since I'm sure some of you guys have these products in your collection as well. But I would still say I love this palette. The formulation is really impeccable, and this color curation, especially for summer, is just so much fun. You can do a lot of those really nice sort of blush draping, sunset, gradient looks with this. I haven't actually picked up any NARS blush palettes since this one, because since then they haven't been using this sort of formulation, and I really love this Baked Gelée formula. It's just so beautiful and so creamy on the skin, and this shade especially is really gorgeous for neutral looks, but the rest are really lovely for a sunset look. The last blush I mentioned was this Patrick Ta Monochrome Moment Velvet Blush. So this is an all powder blush. So I know his other blush formulation, the duos with the cream and the powder, are super viral, super popular. I did try that in 2022, but I actually still like this one better. So I haven't used this as much lately just because there have been so many new blushes that I've been trying out, but I still do really love this. And this shade in particular is really lovely just for an everyday basis. It's kind of like a lighter version of that shade I swatched from the NARS palette. So if you're interested in Patrick Ta blushes, I would actually recommend this over the duos. Now moving on to highlights, first I just had basically all of the Pat McGrath highlighters in my best of. So there was the Divine Rose highlighter. I still love this. This is still one of my all-time favorite highlights. Again, a product I don't use a lot on my channel just because it's discontinued. I also really enjoy the Divine Glow highlights, which are in her permanent line. This one is Golden Nectar. This is a more glowy highlight than this one over here, but it's not glittery at all, so still very flattering on the skin. And then, of course, I had to feature her holiday highlighter. This one is so beautiful, so amazing. Again, one I have not used for a while for you guys just because you can't get it anymore, but let's use it today because this is just such a fun highlighter. So I'm going to go in with my Sonia G Detail Pro and just lightly put this on. I mean, this one is pretty blingy. It has some micro glitters unlike the other two Pat McGrath highlighters. But I mean, it's for the holidays, so it had to have an extra bit of shine. As you can see, that's just such a fun shade. It's really quite light, so it's definitely gonna bring that shine and bling to your look. I think her highlighter from this holiday collection is actually quite similar to this, maybe just a deeper, more peachy tone. But the packaging on 2021 was just so luxe. I also mentioned in 2021 my Becca highlighters. I'm really sad that Becca is gone now. This one, Spanish Rose Glow in particular, was one of my favorites last year, and I haven't really used this in 2022. I think again because Becca went out of business, I just felt like I shouldn't share these on my channel, and I ended up putting these in my second drawer and just not really reaching for them. But I still do really like these, and I should really pull these out and use these a bit more. Now moving on to eyeshadow, this is where I went a little bit overboard with my favorites. There's just so many palettes I mentioned, so let's try to go through these really quickly. So first off, I mentioned the Natasha Denona Midi palettes, particularly Bronze and Retro. Still really love both of these. This is my go-to for a cooler toned rosy look. This one for a warmer toned bronzy look. Really impeccable formulations. Next we have Circo Loco and Trio Chrome from Natasha Denona. Still love these as well. I mostly use these for their matte shades though. Basically I love going in to these for some colorful mattes and then finishing it off with an indie shimmer or whatever other shimmer that I'm really excited about. Next we have the Celestial Odyssey Holiday Palette. This is one I actually didn't really use much at all in 2022. It's a lovely palette, but the color story in general is just a little bit more warm and neutral than I typically go for. Especially when I'm thinking Pat McGrath, I typically like going for some different color stories, and so even though this is a lovely palette, I honestly haven't reached for it that much. And I definitely love this year's holiday palette a lot more because it has those colorful mattes and in general is just a more inspirational palette for me. Next we have the Sydney Grace Tantalize collab. So these were palettes that I was using a ton of when I first got them, but then after a while I kind of forgot about them and didn't really use them very much anymore. I think the thing with these palettes is they're not really kind of your everyday color stories. But unlike my Natasha Denona or Pat McGrath palettes, they don't really have those really special textures that would draw me in. So I find myself not reaching for these as much just because if I'm going for this sort of color story, I would probably be more interested in going into my Natasha Denona palettes or my Pat McGrath palettes and sort of having some more textures as well. But I still really love the formulations in these. Like the mattes are incredibly easy to blend, incredibly creamy. And the shimmers are also amazing quality. And these Sydney Grace palettes are much more affordable than a lot of these other luxury eyeshadow brands. So I still would definitely recommend these palettes and Sydney Grace in general. It just depends what kind of color story you're going for. Next, we have Star Aura from Charlotte Tilbury, and I absolutely loved this palette so much the first year I had it. I would say that recently I found that when I use this on my lower lash line area, it does kind of irritate that area. I'm not really sure what's going on. It's fine on my lids, but just not like really close to my waterline. Something about this formula just irritates it, and I don't know if it's like gone bad or something. I mean, it looks basically the same, and I guess has an 18-month shelf life, so we're probably getting close to that. But as a result, I haven't been reaching for this as much, even though I really love the way my eyes look with this palette. It's just they do feel a little bit irritated after a while. Next, we have the Natasha Denona Glam Face palette. This one was a very new palette when I did my best of, so it was kind of an honorable mention because I had only had it for a month. Now that I've had it for over a year, this ended up in my best of 2022 as well, and this was my most worn palette in 2022. So definitely can vouch for this, and it has truly stood the test of time compared to all of these other palettes. I'll quickly also mention a few honorable mention palettes that I had. So we have the Adept Cosmetics Ninhydrin palette, the Nessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 3 palette, and then my Indie Shadows. And so these were all pretty new when I filmed my Best of 2021 video. So now that more time has passed, I would say that the Ninhydrin palette is still one that I definitely love. It's so gorgeous, and actually I'm very tempted to wear this today. I don't know, I haven't decided yet what I'm going to put on my eyes. I'll make a decision after I talk through all these palettes. But I find that I don't reach for this a ton just because I don't actually like these two matte shades, and so as a result I can't get a complete look out of this palette. But I absolutely love the shimmers. The shimmers are so gorgeous, so buttery, really, really beautiful on the lids. So would recommend Adept Cosmetics' shimmer formula. This Nessa Myricks palette is one that I went really, really hard with for a while when I first got it. And I actually gave away one of these to you guys when I got an extra in my Beautylish Lucky Bag. I will say though, I haven't been using it a ton in 2022 since then. I would say the first half of the year I was using this a lot, but then kind of similar to the Ninhydrin palette, because this doesn't really have a full look, I ended up not really using this as much in the latter half of the year. And then when her Lightwork 4 came out, I just wasn't attracted to the center shades and felt like since I wasn't using this palette enough, it didn't make sense to get another. And so still love this palette, but don't actually reach for it a lot. And then finally, if you've watched my Best of 2022 video, you know that these Indie Shadows, which I've gotten a lot more of since 2021, are still my favorites. I love Cleona, I love Terra Moons, would highly recommend them, some of my favorite eyeshadows on the market. So the last eyeshadow palette that I mentioned in 2021 was this Utopian Dream from Pat McGrath. It's always hard for other eyeshadow palettes to compete with Motherships, in my opinion, and this one is one of my all-time favorites. If you guys haven't watched my Pat McGrath rankings video, definitely check that out. So this was the palette I went into today's video fully planning to use, because even though this is one of my all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes, it's been a little while since I've worn this. I feel like this palette doesn't really give me fall-winter vibes, and so I was using this a lot more in the warmer months, but it's been a little while. The Ninhydrin palette looked really beautiful, and I feel like really matches a lot of the colors in this dress, but this guy is also just so pretty. Okay, well, we'll start with this palette at least because it has some beautiful mattes, and then we'll see how I'm feeling. So I'm going to go in first with this Wayne Goss number 19 brush into this lighter matte shade and put this all over my crease area. So definitely today, when I was looking back at my Best of 2021 videos, I was struck by just how many products I mentioned, because, you know, I was taking out all of these products to film today's video. And I was just like, oh my gosh, why did I have to mention so many products in my favorites? Because, I mean, I wonder if it's actually helpful for you guys if there's too many products in the favorites video. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. In my 2022 best of video, I just filmed one video, and so I tried to keep it pretty short. Definitely mentioned far fewer products. I did, though, film a separate eyeshadow rankings video, so if you guys want to see my rankings of all of the palettes that I tried in 2022, that video is now online. And now with that same brush, I'm going into the slightly deeper matte shade. All right, so moment of truth. Am I gonna go into these two or into my Ninhydrin palette? Let's see. There's so many gorgeous shades to decide between. Okay, I think I'm gonna take some of Ninhydrin just because it's so pretty, and then maybe take some of the Utopian Dream shades as well. I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and just put this all over the lid, and then we'll assess from there. Whew, look at that. Such a pretty shade. I love wearing colorful dresses because I feel like it makes it easier to wear really colorful eyeshadow, because even though everything is very colorful, if you make the colors match, it just looks like everything works together. That for me is my #1 hack for using more colorful makeup. If you guys are interested in more hacks, I do have a video just talking about my strategies for wearing more colorful makeup looks. But there we go. That's really nice. I mean, it's definitely more purpley than the dress, but it has some of those similar vibes. All right, so I am tempted to add some of these guys here. So I'm gonna just take a little bit of this. So just a little scatter of that. And then just put this kind of in the center of the lids. Ooh, isn't that fun? Look at that. So pretty, wow. Look at that disco ball on my eyes, oh my gosh. So this palette is so much fun. I do really love how fun it is, and yeah, I need to bring this out now that spring is on the horizon. This is definitely, for me, a very spring color story. And on the topic of sparkly shades, two things I did mention in 2021's best of video were Mehron Mixing Liquid and this Intensifies wand from Pat McGrath. So both of these were major game changers for me when I first tried them, because they really help a lot in terms of using these sorts of really sparkly shades. Essentially, this is just the liquid version, whereas this is the stick form. It's the same concept, and for this you generally need to wet your brush and then wash your brush right afterward. The advantage of this stick over here is because it's kind of like a balmy consistency, you just run it along your lids, and then you can use a finger and apply your shadows like I did today. I will say though, I haven't used either of these that much in 2022, just because I've either mostly just kind of been lazy and just dealt with the fallout, or I've been using shadows that just aren't as flaky. I mean, as you can see today, I was fine even though these are quite flaky shadows. There's like a little bit of fallout from the Pat McGrath, but still overall it's adhering nicely to the lids. I am so excited about this look though. It's so, so pretty. So I went off camera to finish off the eye look. Basically on the lower lash line, I put this transition shade and then this deeper shade, and then went in with a little bit of this sparkly shade. And then for eyeliner, I used the two that I mentioned in my best of 2021 video. First is this M Cosmetics brush liner. That's what I used on top. This is still my overall favorite Ride or Die eyeliner, so I featured this in my best of 2022 as well. On the lower lash line, I have my Pat McGrath Permagel liner in the shade Black Coffee. This was the one that I was using constantly throughout 2021, and I started 2022 using this a lot too. But ever since going to Seoul and picking up the Sister Anne eyeliner, this guy has been dethroned. So I still like it, but there's really nothing better about this than my Sister Anne one, and that one really, really stays in the waterline even better than this guy. And so I like this, but would definitely steer you towards the Sister Anne if you're looking for something that really sticks in that waterline area. So now to finish off this eye look, I'm going to go in with some of that Becca highlighter, just because since it's out, I would really like to have a little bit of it on my face. I'm going to put that in the inner corners with my mini booster from Sonia G. And then also take a little bit of that on the brow bone area as well. So now for lip products. The first product that I mentioned was the Summer Fridays lip balm. This is still a lip balm that I really love whenever my lips are feeling really dry and I want a little bit of a tint but mostly want moisture. So I would still definitely recommend this formula. I was also a huge fan of the M Cosmetics lip cushion formula, especially the shade Venetian Rose. I will say that I haven't used this that much. There's nothing wrong with the formulation at all. This is still one of the best formulas, I think, if you want something that's really nourishing on your lips but provides a pretty decent pigment dose. It's just this packaging is a lot less luxurious than a lot of my other lip products, and so I just don't reach for it as much. Next, we have the Pat McGrath lip glosses. This is Flesh 6. I still love these. I've collected more of these since then. I think I have 3 versions of Flesh 6 now because there's a lot of minis in this shade. So still would highly recommend this. One of my favorite formulas in terms of glosses. Another lip gloss I really loved was from Lisa Eldridge. This is the shade Affair. I still love how this looks, but it started to turn a little bit. In general, my Lisa Eldridge lipsticks and lip glosses have not really been the best in terms of longevity. So one of my matte lipsticks broke, and then the other lip products have started to turn a little bit off. So as much as I love this, I don't really use it that much anymore just because it's starting to smell a little funky. So that's been kind of disappointing because I have like maybe 8 of her lip glosses and some of them still taste fine, the newer ones in particular, but others are a little bit questionable right now. So that's something to note. I mean, it does say here that has a 36-month shelf life, but it's definitely been less than 36 months and I have found them starting to turn. Next, we have the Huda Beauty Cream Lipsticks. I had a few of these when I filmed my Best of 2021, but I have since bought more of them, so would definitely highly recommend this formula. It remains one of my favorite nude lipstick formulas because there's just so many different shades they have for every single skin tone and every single nude lipstick vibe. If you want something a little bit more brown based or a little bit more pink based, it's got you covered. It basically feels like a lip balm, but you can get very good pigmentation, and the lasting power is pretty decent as well considering how comfortable it is. Next, we have these lipsticks from Charlotte Tilbury. I mentioned Passion Kiss in my Best of 2021. I ended up also getting Enchanting Kiss. And I still really like this formula. It's extremely comfortable on the lips. Feels a lot like the lip cushion, where it's like a very pigmented, lip balmy, lip gloss type of formula. The only thing I don't like about this is the packaging feels very cheap, and as you can see, the area around the bullet tends to get really dirty after a while. So I don't actually find myself reaching for these as much nowadays because there's just a lot of other lip products competing, but it's still a very solid formulation. Oh, and I forgot to mention from Lisa Eldridge, her Luxuriously Lucent lip colors. This is Kitten Mischief. I don't wear these as much as I used to just because of A, the going bad issue that I talked about, and B, I found that this formula is very silicone-y, which makes it feel really good when you first apply it, but it can start feeling a little bit drying on the lips as the day goes on. It's still a beautiful, wonderful formula, so in terms of the whole makeup space, it's still really good. But it's just that in the past year, I've gotten a lot more lipsticks that are kind of competing for this sort of category, and I do like some of those better. Let me know if you guys would be interested in a lipstick ranking video. But I still think this is a solid formula, and the shades that she has are really beautiful. Finally, we have this gorgeous Gucci lipstick. This is in the shade Janet Rust. I still go for this whenever I want a red lip. It's just such a gorgeous formulation and packaging, super, super luxe. The only thing I don't like about this is the fragrance is really strong. I did get another Gucci lipstick as well, and that one also has a very strong fragrance. So on a day-to-day basis, that does kind of put me off a little bit. It's not really a formula I grab for on that regularly, but for special occasions when I want to feel really glam, I do love reaching for this. So the final products that I featured in my Best of 2021 videos were lip liners. And I have here Affair from Lisa Eldridge, Naya from Natasha Denona, and Structure from Pat McGrath. I still love all of these. I would say that overall, Natasha Denona's formula kind of rules the day for me in terms of being the most long-lasting and also the creamiest. But I do love these as well. The Lisa Eldridge one I find lasts the least long, but is a very beautiful color. Affair is just one of my favorite colors. Structure is a really lovely color as well. I think it's kind of in between these two in terms of longevity. I think today I will go into Structure since I recently sharpened this. But I will say that in 2022, I wasn't a huge lip liner person. I didn't really buy that many new lip liners. And most days I just found myself going directly in with a lip product. But these still remain some of my favorite formulas. And for the lip product, I think I'm going to go in with the lip cushion from M Cosmetics since color-wise, this is the coolest toned of the ones that I pulled out. Alrighty, so here is the final look. What do you guys think? On the whole, I have to say that it's been really fun pulling out all of these products and putting them on my face and also just running through them with you guys today. I've actually been really impressed by how many of these products that I mentioned in 2021 I still actually really love today. Even for the ones I haven't used in a very long time, it's generally been because they've been discontinued or I just kind of forgot they existed. But I actually still really love pretty much all of these products, which is quite impressive. And it's a nice reminder that even though there's like new products coming out all the time and we're always sort of, chasing that high of finding a new holy grail, there's a lot of really great stuff that was released in previous years. And I actually recently filmed my first Shop My Stash and you guys seem to like it. So this video and that video are kind of inspiring me to spend a bit more time with my existing collection and pull out some more of these old products for you guys. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in because I do find that new product releases tend to do the best on my channel, but maybe I'll try to sprinkle in more of these old products as well. And before I close out this video, in case you're curious, this is what the Lisa Eldridge swatches look like after they've dried. Again, this is 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that's it for today's video. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!